Hello from New Zealand. This video's a little bit late this week, but I thought I would still complete it because some people were asking about it. So, this was round 4 of the October Vassal event, and I'm just going to go through analyzing the pools from a Resur's perspective, noting I don't know the crews that well, so some of these opinions may not be the best, but hopefully other people can contribute theirs. So the pool was Flank Turf War, on this was the board here, and uh, the I was against 10 Thunders as the defender, and the scheme pool was Vendetta, Hidden Martyrs, Spread Them Out, Bait and Switch, and Deathbeds. Uh, so that's pretty good scheme pool, fair bit to work with in there, and so I think this was a pretty good one for Rezzers. And so let's go through it. Flank Turf War. I think you've got a lot of options. Turf War can be pretty cagey, especially on flank where you've got lots of different deployment options. You can't permanently claim a marker, so you got to be spending the entire game prepared to really go to any of the markers on the map and to be fighting over the entire board at once. So it's fairly mobility based, and of course losing a model can flip a marker, so tankier crews are rewarded. So Janlo, Von Sturck, Molly, Seamus, and Riva are all really good at not losing models, covering lots of territory, and flipping those markers. They're all really great at that. Jackdaw is pretty good at it. He's not likely to lose models, but I was a bit worried about not being able to chase models down properly. I did see some practice games with Jackdaw where he felt maybe the low end of green might have been an okay place to rank him, but he just felt a little bit more of a struggle here. Dr. McMorning, his models are pretty squishy. If an opponent wants to kill them, they can kill him, so I think he's a little bit more yellow here as well. Kirai has the problem that all summoners have, that they summon models and they die and they flip the turf war markers, which can be really bad. So most summoners will probably lean towards a red ranking here. Summoners do have access to a strategy here where what they can do is they can just say, well, neither of us are scoring turf war points, and they can overwhelm the enemy and have tons of summons and just go for a really low scoring game on both sides. Especially Kirai 2 is probably really viable for that, so she probably doesn't quite deserve a full red ranking, but that's how I put her. The board, as we can see, pretty open. There's terrain to work with. You can hide from shooting a little bit, but you can get around the board. There is a perfect amount of deployment possibilities for Seamus here. Every deployment zone has a good options for him to move around. Turf War has provides 5 markers for Seamus to teleport around, so I've marked him twice there, S tier, for this map. Like, he can just do whatever the hell he wants on this, especially with these height 1 fences just provide so many options for those blocking teleports, so it's a really, really good board for Seamus. Everyone else, perfectly fine for it. Rezzers have a lot of movement tools in general. We've got places, we've got incorporeal models, we've got all sorts of tools, and the board's not that demanding to begin with. The severe terrain is a little bit of an issue, so maybe I should have marked McMorning as yellow, because you can only avoid so much of it with placement, and sometimes you actually have to walk through it, and that can be a problem, especially as defender, which I was. Jackdaw I marked as yellow just because those forests, like, that's a bit of severe, a bit of concealing terrain can be a problem for him, and that dense fog cloud. Like, enemies are going to be able to hide from his ranged attacks, which is a bit of a problem because that's how he does on your heels to get into melee. Faction matchup, I was against 10 Thunders. I am very bad against 10 Thunders. I don't really know what works well against them. I knew my opponent was playing Shen Long, and I knew Von Sturck seemed really, really good into that matchup. Kirai, I don't think she has any problems there. Yunlo, again, plenty of power there, although a little bit annoying that his demises get ignored. Riva, again, like, I like to run Grave Golem with her, and that's a little bit annoying to miss out on that, but I think overall she's perfectly fine. I don't think they have too much marker removal, so that's fine. Molly, I always struggle a little bit. I think partially because 10 Thunders are so mobile, and they provide a lot of things that she just doesn't like to deal with, like Fuhatsu she can deal with, but is annoying. Um, Dr. McMorning, I marked as yellow because of like Jirokamo and they can stop his healing, but then I thought, well, he can also just two-shot them. I don't think it's actually that big a deal. Um, so I think he's all right. Seamus, they do have a lot of good henchmen, and henchmen are like one of the things Seamus doesn't like to see. Like, even if you're not playing Seamus, you're going to see a lot of henchmen on the table, and in fact, my opponent ended up bringing, I think, 3 stone users for our game. Um, and on top of that, if you end up against Shenlong, the chi is just absolutely devastating for a one-shot master like Seamus. Jackdaw, Ten Thunders is the ruthless faction. It has so much ruthless. It's just no to Jackdaw there. Um, a bit of a spoiler. I did end up. I was playing a friend, and it was round 4, and there were no stakes, so I decided to play McMorning for fun. But I think Von Stuck would have been the optimal choice into Ten Thunders, especially since I knew it was Shenlong. I did do a practice game with Von Stuck, and he just absolutely wrecked here. But let's take a look at the scheme pool. Vendetta is something Rezzers are incredibly good at. We have lots of models who can pull it off well, like from Archie to Monos to Bete Noire. And Bete Noire is worth a special mention because if you're playing the right crew for her, she can basically score it at no risk. Pop out of a corpse marker, punch someone, score the point, bury, done. And then end of the game she unburies, and then you've got your 2 points. And potentially she can even scheme run after scoring the first point, so she's just... she's phenomenal at it and deserves that special mention. Jackdaw has Hanged to do it, who are very resilient and only cost 8, so they have tons of targets. Molly has Archie, Monos, Kruligans. They all can pull it off quite well. She can tech for Bete Noire if she wants, like she has a ton of options for it. Seamus and Riva, Bete Noire is very easily can be a part of their crews, and it can be really, really solid. I think she's better with Riva than with Seamus, but she's still, I mean, she's part of Seamus' keyword, so I've marked it there. And he has, I guess, like, Sybil could do it if he wanted, and he can hire a lot of Ooks and Versatiles anyway. Yanlo, Von Stuck, and McMorning all have some high-cost models that the opponent is probably wanting to kill anyway, so that's kind of just giving your opponent some increased efficiency. And then there's Karai, who, like, her models, she's at her best when the crew is expendable, when she doesn't care about them dying. Vendetta really impedes that because then she has to care about her Vendetta model living, as well as when other people are choosing Vendetta on, say, Akirio, suddenly you're handing them points by doing your natural game plan, which is for Akirio to die. So I don't like Karai into Vendetta pools. Hidden Martyrs. Wowza, what a thing for us, Rezzers. First off, Take the Hit is fantastic for Hidden Martyrs because you can often force a death. So you've got Gwisin, Ashigaru, and Shield Bearer are all fantastic options. They fit into pretty much any crew. You can take Ashigaru out of keyword. The only reason you would never take a Shield Bearer out of keyword is Gwisin and Ashigaru exist. I was playing a no-title game, but like the... yeah, so that's just so much power there for Hidden Martyrs. Molly I've marked as S tier because the Archie Kruligan combo is, again, very, very consistent for scoring it, even if your opponent knows you have it. If you throw an Archie in their face, they kind of have to deal with him. They can't kill him with conditions, which is usually one of the best possible answers to Hidden Martyrs, is you want a Hidden Martyrs you can deny by killing with conditions, but Archie is immune to conditions, so Molly's very, very good at Hidden Martyrs. I think Von Stuck, like, you can do double Necropunks. My problem I found with Von Stuck is there's a risk neither Necropunk dies because they're so damn good. But that's kind of a nice problem to have. If your 2 scheme runners survive the entire game on flank turf war, you're probably doing well. So, and then you can still score the endpoint. So I think that's fine. Kirai here, opposite thing of Vendetta. Kirai now is very happy that her models are going to die by default. So that you're trying to get your models to kill. The only problem is... and I've done this against a Kirai before, where you are risking the possibility that they simply refuse to kill your Akirio, and if your opponent doesn't do the killing, then you can't get it. Which reminds me, actually, Molly should not be marked S tiers for Hidden Martyrs. She should be marked as yellow tier. The reason being, so let's shift that over there. The reason being that if Molly is... Molly's Les Caress will auto kill models. Like, so Molly just hands your opponent a method of scoring hidden martyrs, which is really really bad. So actually, she's not as great at it as I claimed. I had forgotten about that mechanic where if your opponent is savvy, they will use Les Caress to do 2 damage to them when they repeat an action, and they will die to Molly's. And it's very very difficult to deny the full score or the at least partial score. Um, Reva McMorning Jackdaw. I don't think they have anything that smoothly fits the 13 stones combo. Like, Jackdaw can do a hanged and a guilty, I think, but you kind of want the hanged and the guilty to be expendable, even though, like, hanged are pretty good at surviving till the end of the game. It's ideal if they don't have to. And then McMorning, his models are so squishy, like... But, I mean, they can all pull it off. Like, it's a perfectly reasonable thing for them to attempt. So I think that's fine. Spread them out. Special mention to Enslaved Spirit if you're playing with Malphone Burns content. Because it's a 3-stone model that's really efficient at dropping the scheme markers because it's 3 stones, it's incorporeal, it's got chain gang. So it's providing utility while it's also running off and scheme running. And then on top of that, when it dies, it drops a scheme marker. I should have probably maybe marked it as yellow just because we're on flank turf war here, and for flank turf war, having a 3-stone model that can die easily is not ideal, although there is enough terrain on this map that you could hide it, so like, it definitely deserves a mention. Von Stuck, Molly, Yonlo, Seamus, Kirai, all very mobile, all very good at scoring, spread them out. I do sometimes mark them as yellow because it is ultimately generally a 6 AP task to drop the markers for spread them out, but especially on flank turf which can really reward those KG games anyway, where you can then sometimes have the spare AP to be throwing down some markers as you go, jumping between the different turf war markers, and the turf war markers are then on a diagonal, so you can be interacting with 4 different turf war markers in positions that are all viable for spread them out. So I think this is a really really good pool for spread them out. Reva and McMorning, they can do it, but they don't really like sparing the AP. Like, they have rather be using their movement tricks on other things and like staying focused on the enemy. McMorning does do a pretty good KG game, but being KG and getting enough interacts for the turf war markers and for the spread them out markers, it's a bit of an ask. And then Jackdaw, like, his best movement ability on your heels requires him to be in combat. He doesn't like spending actions interacting, it's just not great. Bait and switch, I've mentioned previously, Dead Rider, it's got to be marked green because that first point you can get via Reap, which is really really good. You just lay down the scheme marker, you reap the target into position. This is an alright pool for turf war, because it's turf war. Sorry, not because it's turf war, but there's no breakthrough in the pool, so it's alright for the second point of bait and switch. There is one turf war marker which kind of makes it harder, so like, I don't rate bait and switch that much in this pool, but it's also not terrible. Like, if someone told me that they, like, I would expect you'd probably get 1 point off of bait and switch in this game. Seamus, Molly, Yonlo, and Albus von Stuck are all got some tricks for defending their base, whether that's killing models out of it or pushing them out of their base. For that second point, they have some movement tricks for scoring the first point, so that's alright. Reva, McMorning, Kirai, and Jackdaw, I don't think they have the tools for it, but maybe I'm missing something. Deathbeds, Turf War is, of course, a fantastic place for scoring deathbeds. Because you've got all those markers, and you want to be killing models. So I'd say Turf War, or Deathbeds is pretty good on Turf War. Reva is, of course, worth a special mention on all marker schemes because that's her thing. She does markers, so she can do corpses, she can do pyre markers, she can do strategy markers for deathbed. She just has a whole lot of options, so she's very, very good at that. Von Stuck can drop scheme markers on kills, which is useful, although it's a bit awkward timing-wise, because you would have to kill 2 models then. But he does tend to have just a lot of incidental scheme markers around, which kind of masks what you're doing when you're trying to score deathbeds, which is really, really nice. Seamus, like, if a model goes and claims the marker, it's pretty trivial to just go, oh, well, I'm going to shoot you in the face, and, like, he's pretty fantastic for it. Sorry, he can lay down the scheme marker, then shoot them in the face, score the point, remove the model, and possibly flip a turf war marker. Like, that's just so efficient. Seamus is great here. Yanlo's title is worth a mention because he's got Wary Road, which lays down the ski marker. He's got Hole in the World trigger, so he can actually reposition models into be in the correct position for it. So he seems really, really good here. Molly, like, she can do it, but it's a bit of effort. Like, and I think people may be gathering the impression that I don't really like Molly on the Gaining Grounds 2, and like, yeah, I think Gaining Grounds 2 has been very harsh to Molly. Um, McMorning and Kirai, like, it's a bit of effort to get those ski markers down. So I think it's fine for them, but um, it's a little bit tricky. And then Jackdaw again, like that interacting to get those markers down is difficult. His primary movement thing on your heels, like typically the enemies are dictating positioning, and you don't want to kill one model that's away from a turf war marker um, when trying to score deathbeds. So yeah, I kind of marked him as red. So ultimately, I think Von Stuck would have been a really good pick here. I did a test run of him, and he was really fantastic. Now that I think about it, Seamus actually would have been really good for just carving out the scheme runners. Although that Chi, yeah, I think that Chi would have made it non-viable. So I think the Shenlong matchup basically is the reason Seamus is difficult into Ten Thunders. I think. And so, but what I ended up taking was McMorning just because it's fun. I wanted to test him into Ten Thunders. Turns out I can kill Fuhatsu pretty consistently with McMorning. I think McMorning's really good at tearing apart Fuhatsu, but it does take a lot of effort. I'm not sure it's worth spending that effort to take him down. But I did score Vendetta on him. But yeah, please share your comments if you have any, and let me know if this matches up with your interpretation of the pool.